This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble. Feel the starlight crumble.
Everyone all set? Ready for class? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're broadcasting 2 hours from the farm today, right here, high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Information's on the website, and you may listen live. You may listen through USAPrepares.com. You can listen through your telephone, through your smartphone, the internet. Nathan's producing the broadcast in Minnesota, and there's a link to all of your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and we're doing the second in a series of very special classes. Welcome, Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Yeah, I know. I'm watching the media right now on that storm in Japan and now China. That is unbelievable. The big typhoon that has hit Japan. Concerns about Fukushima and all the rest of it.
Well, Rick, if we have time, let's get into that toward the end of this broadcast. Now, I'd like to share with the class, on Thursdays, Grace Thorne, a teacher in Ryan, Oklahoma, sets her dial on her PC to USAPrepares.com. She leaves the traditional learning methods as prescribed by most school systems, and she turns to the internet for 2 hours of science with us here at USAPrepares.com. Richard Allen Miller is at the head of the classroom. And when I learned that she did that, I invited her and her class to be on the air with us. And we did that several weeks ago. That was class number 1. This is the second in a series of classes with Grace Thorne's 6th grade students in Ryan, Oklahoma, Ryan Public Schools in Oklahoma. And I'd like to thank the principal, Pete Maples, and I'd like to thank the superintendent, Larry Ninman, of Ryan Public Schools for allowing this to happen. Grace Thorne, welcome to USAPrepares.com.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you
coming
for having
in
us on again, too.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're coming in loud and clear. Grace, I'd like to ask you, do your students enjoy, or are they being coerced into being on the air with us?
Oh, no. They almost trampled me getting here today, and I love doing it.
Okay, so the revolution in education starts right here on the radio. Class, you can do this. You can do this in your hometown. You can do this with experts that you find. And so maybe this is something that just might take off a little faster and faster and faster. So, Grace, we have assembled in the superintendent's office. You've taken over his office. There are 14 students, as I understand it, in his office, and you have a series of questions that you've asked your students to prepare for Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Is that correct?
Yes.
And let me ask you this. Do you see an advantage for having your students do this rather than learn this way rather than the traditional method? Are there any advantages?
Yeah, I think so. Besides liking to hear themselves on radio, that's just the fun part. they're using skills that they've learned in other subjects. They organize their thoughts. They do the writing. They practice speaking correctly. And they're learning new facts about science, I think, that we probably wouldn't cover in the textbook.
Mm-hmm.
And they have to talk to their parents about listening to this program, and then we communicate with Mr. Ninman also about using this office, which they probably would never do. And now they're talking to other students about what we're doing, and there's other students that are wanting to get involved in this, so I think that's all good.
Well, we'd love to help, and if you can just let me know.
I have something to say, too.
Sure.
In the state of Washington, where I grew up as a boy, Dr. Dixie Lee Ray was head of the Atomic Energy Commission, and then later ran for governor in the state of Washington. And at that time, I had just gotten out of graduate school, was working at Boeing, and at that time, we started first at the University of Washington with an experimental college, and it allowed the students to choose their curriculum rather than be by a school board. And so Evergreen in Olympia, Washington became the first experimental college and then university. It's now a full university where the children or the students get to choose what they want to study as part of their background for graduation. And rather than having so many requirements, they set their own requirements. And this is called an experimental university, where it is now producing such giants as Fred Allen Wolf. Fred Allen Wolf was one of my first students at Evergreen when I was first faculty. And it's going to be a pleasure to see him down in February after he's written all his books on the quantum universe and things of that nature. That is what allowing the students to choose their own curriculum will allow, and it was and is a system that's now working in Washington State.
Well, Rick, that's kind of what we're doing right here. We're allowing the students for these 2 hours to decide what they want to learn. They've formulated their own questions, and
that's empowerment. This is what gives the child excitement of feeling like he's in charge of his own ship and can choose what is important for himself right now. And it turns out their minds are better than ours, and they're making better decisions in things like food choices, things like that. The children are smarter than adults. And I think the current systems of education that we're all enjoying have dumbed down America, and I'm just delighted to be part of a possible revolution in changing some of the discipline ways that children are able to access information.
Well, here we go. So, speaking of smarter than we are, Mackenzie, Mackenzie, you're up first. Now, for the listening class, these are sixth graders at a conference table in the superintendent's office in Ryan Public Schools, Ryan, Oklahoma. We're talking about 11-year-olds coming up to the classroom here on the radio, asking their questions. Mackenzie, you're up first. Do you have a question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
Yes. If radiation is so bad, how does it cure cancer?
Yeah, that's a good question, all right, because, of course, radiation kills everything, just like most antibiotics kill everything. And that's why when you take an antibiotic, after you finish taking it, you're kind of sick for a while because it's indiscriminate and goes into the gut and kills all bacteria, good bacteria as well as bad. And so it's kind of like a shotgun, and you go in and blow everything away and hope that the body is strong enough to repair itself. That is the way cancer is now treated with radiation. The radiation goes in, they try to radiate just the area affected, trying to keep it down to that narrow band of on the body, and then they go in and kill everything. And then they hope that the body is strong enough that it can then repair itself with good cells rather than ones that are bad. The important thing to remember, Mackenzie, is that cancer is always occurring in the body. It is basically the body making a mistake. Now, what the body's constantly making mistakes. That's why you have warts and all kinds of other things that come out of your body. However, what you do not want is the mistake to continue. And because if it does, then those cells, the ones that are mistakes, begin to think that that's the correct way to do it, and they continue to make mistakes. Cancer is curable in most cases and can be addressed with diet rather than radiation and chemotherapy. And by the time people are finished with chemotherapy and radiation, it comes down to the question of which way do you want to die? You want to die with cancer, or do you want to die from radiation sickness? And that is, unfortunately, our current state of approach for most cancer.
Rick, can you also address that some antibiotics, if you take them too often, too frequently, the abuse of antibiotics may lead to the body's resistance to those antibiotics?
Well, of course, that's what the body does. It tries to counteract mistakes in the body. An antibiotic is in there going out, killing everything, and you think the body's going to let it do that? It wants those certain kinds of habitats of bacteria and viruses in the body that will help digestion, but not, let's say, cause you an organ to fail. And the body is basically mostly a habitat, just like the environment that you live in, where it has a bunch of other living organisms trying to find a way of compromise with each other so that you exist rather than die. It's really important to look at your body that way, that you've got all kinds of bacteria on the inside and outside. In fact, I would say that the human body is less than 10% human, and the rest of it is water transport processes and bacteria.
And Rick, you also mentioned radiation. Can you share with the class the reason why they don't want too many X-rays, too many dental X-rays, needless X-rays? We come back. Can you address that? And then Grace, you'll be up next after that. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We're teaching 6th grade today. We're teaching 6th grade. Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Ryan, Oklahoma. I'm Vin Finale. This is USAPrepares.com. Grace Thorne's 6th grade class is with us, and we're talking with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. RichardAllenMiller.com, RichardALAN Miller.com. And Mackenzie was asking about radiation. If it's so bad, how does it cure cancer? Dr. Richard Allen Miller, could you just add a little bit more about too much radiation, as in dental X-rays and overdoing it with X-rays?
You want to keep your exposure down to a minimum. That's why astronauts are at extreme risk up in space, because they don't have an atmosphere to absorb some of the ionizing, that's what it's called, ionizing radiation. And what ionizing radiation does is that it causes changes in the cell. It goes in and blows them apart. And that's why you get a sunburn and then possibly skin cancer from exposure. You need to be very careful about how many dental X-rays they take, or chest X-rays, things of that nature. You'll notice that the operator goes behind a brick wall and lines you with lead all over your body, these big heavy aprons, because radiation itself is quite dangerous, and to have it be used as a cure against cancer is kind of like hitting a very small tack with a very large mallet. And it comes down to which way do you want to die, usually.
Okay. Grace, you're up next. Do you have a question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
Now, here's Grace.
What happens to food when you put it in the microwave?
Microwave ovens. Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, what microwave does is it heats up water. The frequency band of the microwaves that are in a microwave oven are specifically designed for frequencies to cause and excite water to boil. It begins on the inside and destructures the water as it moves outward. And we know that when you do little experiments with water and you put it in a microwave oven and you nuke it and then you feed that to a plant, that even though it's water, the plant won't recognize it as water and will die. Whereas water from the tap, the plant can assimilate the water. It is the structuring in the water that makes water so important. Now, I use a microwave oven to clean my sink sponges. I will put them as slightly wet, put them in the microwave for 30 seconds, and the sponge comes out hot because it boiled the water and kills all the bacteria in that sponge. And if you don't think that your towels and your sponges are not, they're loaded with bacteria. And so that would be the only thing I would use today, microwave oven, is to, cleanse some of my kitchen tools or things of that nature. You can't put metal in it because, again, the microwave will be reflected off the metal and it'll blow up everything. But if you have to be very careful about that. Certain kinds of bowls have to be made out of certain kinds of ceramics so that they are microwavable. But I personally do not use a microwave oven anymore because when I heat up water or food with it, it actually destructures the water really efficiently and is then not recognized by my body as water.
And Dr. Miller, there are some cups that, some ceramic cups like coffee mugs that have metallic content or metal content. And you can tell those because if you put them in a microwave oven, the handles of the cup get really hot as well as what's in the cup. So, for example, if you were
you
to...
want to be real careful about using microwave ovens. They're not safe. And again, microwave is, a form of radiation. It's in a specific frequency band and does have toxic behavior on the physical body itself.
And for safety concerns, never, ever, ever look into a microwave oven. If you happen to have one and your family uses one and they plan on continuing to use one, when you hit that start button, you need to back away at least 5 feet, in my opinion. This is just my opinion, at least 5 feet away. Turn your eyes away from the microwave oven because microwave radiation still leaks out of that microwave oven. No matter how they build it, it still leaks out and you can damage your eyes. So don't stare at the item being cooked in a microwave oven. Never do that. And when we get back, Rick, let's talk about some people have done some really bad things with animals in a microwave oven, and we want you to never do that. We've been talking with Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Ryan, Oklahoma. We're teaching science with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. And Brooke, Grace, you had a question about microwave ovens. And I'd like to suggest that you never put an animal in a microwave oven. There are people who have washed their small dogs and small cats and thought, let's dry them off in the microwave oven. It's absolutely deadly. So never, ever, 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 ever put an animal in a microwave oven. It is absolutely horrible. It's a horrible experience. It cooks them from the inside, and you'd never want to do that. So, with great risk, I'm saying this, but I'm concerned because some people have done it, and we don't ever want you to do that. We don't want you to put them in the dryer either, the clothes dryer, okay? So, Dr. Miller, do you have any other thoughts on microwave ovens? Or?
Well, no, the microwave has been used as a weapon, and it's a very effective weapon for crowd dispersal and what we would call mind control, where they can radiate people from space and be able to implant thoughts, things of that nature. Just be aware that whole technology has limitations. The current form of of microwave now is being used to dry plywood. They used to have fires and flame and floors where the plywood would lay and be cured, and today they're putting it in a continuous feed, or what we call a conveyor belt, that would microwave it and dry it as its way through. It's very, very quick. Takes only a couple of minutes to cook something totally down to nothing, but a piece of char. That would include yourself. Actually, with a microwave, the further away you are, the radiation drops by the square. That means at 1 foot, if the radiation is at 1, at 2 feet, it's 1/4. And at 3 feet, it's 1/9. And so it drops way down very quickly by the square of it. So the further away you are from a microwave, the better you are. And usually the radiation drops off by about 2 feet.
Grace, your question is so important. I'd like to extend a little bit more of the answer or some of the thoughts about it. Wi-Fi and cell phones, they are extremely dangerous, and they both emit the same frequencies as a microwave oven. So if you have a Wi-Fi device, a Wi-Fi router in your home, you want to make sure that that's as far away from you and where you spend time as possible. You'd never want one of those next in your bedroom next to your bed. You'd never want one on the other side of the wall from your headboard in your bedroom. And your cell phones, if you happen to have one, you really don't want to keep those in your pockets, and you don't want to keep them on your person, because they are always transmitting, talking to the cell phone towers, saying, I'm here, where are you? And when you're on the phone, that microwave radiation is going directly from the cell phone's antenna, embedded in the cell phone case, right into your body, into your brain. And we're finding out that more and more and more people are ending up with brain cancer. So,
I wanted to add to that. I don't use a cell phone except when I travel, and only in emergencies, which means I stick with a track phone or I pay by the minute. And I'm not planning to use it very much. In fact, I can take a couple hundred minutes, and that'll last me 4 or 5 months. If you're going to use a cell phone, it's best to do it with an earpiece and a throat mic with the cell phone down near your pockets. That means you won't have any babies, but it won't affect your brain.
Mm-hmm. Or keep that cell phone as far away from you as possible.
I wouldn't use one personally. I think it's a bad technology that was primarily developed to reduce populations.
You know, Rick, as we discuss this science class with our 6th grade, we're not speaking on an 11-year-old level. We are speaking at an adult level. And these children are to be commended for the level of the questions that they are asking. Brooke, you're up next with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Do you have a question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Brooke?
Yes. We know vaccines are bad. What can they do to our body?
Well, to understand how a vaccine works gives you that answer. Basically, when I was a little kid, younger even than you, I had to go to China. I was 4 years old and had to go through 6 days of plague shots. That included Black Plague and yellow fever. Now, the way it works is called homeopathy. And basically what they do is they inject you with a non-lethal dose of the crud, and then lets your body develop antibodies so that you're resistant to that kind of crud. Now, what's wrong with that is that if you're living a wholesome life and you're not being exposed to flu, why would you want to take a flu shot just in case? That's crazy thinking in my mind. I will not have, I have an aversion to needles because I was traumatized. By the time I went through 6 days of plague shots at age 4, I was traumatized. I broke rank and ran with Swabi. My father was in the Navy, and so I was a little kid going to China, and I was not ready for the trauma that being given plague would do to a little kid. It made me really sick. Why would I want to get more of them? And today, the amount of inoculations they think are important for you, I would seriously question. Certainly polio, certainly things of that nature are, tetanus shots if you possibly get cut by they always ask me, do I want a tetanus shot? No. The only time I'll get a tetanus shot or something related is if I have not had one in more than 10 years and I cut myself outside on something metal. Then I might get a tetanus shot. But do you think I'm going to want to have that shot? And when they draw blood, it grosses me out. And so it's like vampirism or something weird. What I do is realize that I'm going to have some shots at some time in my life, but I try to keep it down to a minimum, pretty much like I would a microwave. I want to move away from that kind of technology, not toward it. And let me tell you, that's how they work. It's called homeopathy, where they actually give you a dose of the swine flu or whatever they're inoculating you for, so that your body gets sick and recovers, hopefully, without damaging you, like autism or some of the other things that we're now seeing affect children that are even younger than you being given these so-called required shots. I think, again, that some of it has an ulterior purpose, and I think that what they're doing is, again, trying to reduce world population. I think it's insidious.
Brooke, a couple years ago, young girls were encouraged to have a cervical cancer vaccine supposedly to help prevent them from getting cervical cancer. And what happened as a result of them getting these vaccines to prevent cervical cancer, they got cancer. They were given cancer by these vaccines. So what Dr. Richard Allen Miller is saying is, if you can avoid it, it's probably, the best way to go. Now, this is probably going to get me in trouble. And this, Grace Thorne, this may end. When I say this is possibly going to end our ability to have these classes, but I'm going to say it anyway. Public school systems require that children are vaccinated in order for them to attend public school. Now, if you have a religious reason why you do not want your child to be vaccinated, you can, as a parent, go to the principal's office in a school and say, I am exercising my religious freedom, and my religion prevents me from allowing you to immunize my child or have my child receive any immunizations. And stops right there. What I mean by that is, if you want to have your child not receive immunizations that are required by the school system, and you want your child to attend public school, you just exercise that religious exemption. And what will happen is, before you say that it's against your religion, you will be told you absolutely positively have to have these shots, or your child cannot be admitted in public school. But if you exercise that and you say, nope, it's against my religion, they'll immediately send you to the nurse's office, or they will hand you a one-page form that says you are attesting that it's against your religion. You do not have to say what your religion is. You just say it's against your religion, you sign it, and it's done right there. No more immunizations. It stops right there. I did that. I did that with our child. So I just want to say that you can exercise that, and it is your right to not be immunized. You'll have to have your parents do it if that's what you choose to do. Rick, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, pretty much I want to say that some shots are required because, like with polio and things that, that we used to have as a major concern. Basically, I think it's wrong that they require shots because it's just, again, a pharmaceutical house taking control of a market by requiring everybody to use their product.
So, Brooke, what you just heard Dr. Richard Allen Miller say is, imagine having a business where you're in the business of making the immunizations, and then you somehow get every school system in the country to say, you know what, in order for a child to attend public school, you'll have to get this shot, you'll have to buy it. It's creating a marketplace for the immunizations and requiring everybody who goes to public school to have that. What a racket. And that's what we're saying. What a racket. Coming up next, Samantha, you are on next right after this short commercial announcement. We've got your question next. Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Ryan, Oklahoma. I'm Vincent Finale. This is USAPrepares.com. We'll be right back. Class, as a result of Brooke's question about vaccines, I just posted a homework assignment. It's called Vaccine Nation. It's a homework assignment. There's a link on page 1 on the website, USAPrepares.com. It came from a student who texted me during the commercial announcement. So that's on page 1. It's about vaccines. Vaccine Nation, link on page 1, USAPrepares.com. Samantha, you are up next with,
Use your website as a tool. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got, Rick, we have the best class. Seriously, they send me all kinds of links. They keep me informed of things that I might not know about all over the country. Seriously, it's
well,
great.
I have
Samantha.
Joey and Gino and Charles Herring, the Grace, of course, here you are, Grace, that have hooked up with me earlier and then wanted to personally get involved. And they have in different ways that are keeping me current. Joey's list, he sends me about 10 or 15 emails every day of different diverse articles that basically I go through them even though I may not be interested because it keeps me current.
Yes, Joey sends me the same ones.
I'm real careful about that part of things.
Yes, Joey sends me the same links. Samantha, you're up next.
Oh, yes. Good.
Hi, Dr. Miller. I love your accent.
Oh, you like my accent? You're lovely. I love your accent.
Can babies and children see spirits?
Can babies and children see spirits? Of course they can. Yes, of course. Imagination is reality. And what you imagine is what is actually true. And that's what physics is now beginning to understand. And really, it's like that old concept that your belief systems and what you believe can happen or be true is what you can see. And so we used to play the little statement, I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't have believed it. So, of course, I have a white rabbit that's sitting right next to me that I talk to all the time. No, imagination is where the richness lies, and if you have imaginary friends or you see ghosts, you know, we're now understanding that a ghost is really an imprint of emotions, you know, probably into the water. That's the structuring of water in things that are in that environment. Who knows how it all works? But the fact that something very important happened at that one moment, like a murder or a death or a sorrow of loss, imprints that information into the universe. And so, yeah, it's real. And what happens is as you grow up, we tell you that that's not real, and you believe us. That's why stick with what you feel. That's where the real richness lies, is what you believe.
Rick, I have a stack of photographs in the studio with me of our students today, and I want to thank all of you for sending those those pictures. It's absolutely.
I know, they're just incredible. I just wished I knew who each one was, so that when, like Samantha or whatever, when you ask your question, I can pull up the picture and then I have a visual on you. Kind of like you can do with me. You've got pictures of me, so there I am with that silly laugh.
Well, Rick, I can tell you that Samantha is blonde. I have a picture of her right in my hand, and my pictures, Rick, say there's a message on the back of each picture with the student's name. So maybe I can.
I had another question that I thought Samantha was going to ask about Nirvana.
Well, Samantha, do you want to ask a question about Nirvana?
Sure.
Okay, when we come back, we're at the top of the hour. We've got, 6 or 7 or 8 minutes before we come back. So if you need to get a drink of water, whatever your teacher would let you do, you've got a few minutes to do that, and then we'll get back. We'll take over the superintendent's office one more time for the next hour. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Grace Ryan's 6th grade class is with us. Ryan Public School, Ryan, Oklahoma. We're teaching science. We're letting the students ask the questions that they want answers to. Right here, right now, the revolution in education. USAPrepares.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Okay. Hour number 2, USAPrepares.com with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Grace Thorne's 6th grade class has been with us for the first hour. If you're just tuning in. And we are teaching class right here on Worldwide Radio. Ryan Public School, Ryan, Oklahoma. This is the second in our series of the students asking the questions.
I caught something, and I wanted to just mention it. I think that Samantha was being very nice to Gabriel, because I think it was Gabriel's question she asked, and he's way down in the list and probably really wanted to know, and she went out of her way maybe because she wanted to know about Nirvana. And the reason I keyed in on that is because that's one of my most interesting things to talk about. But Gabriel's question was really important, and I just want to finish up by saying to both Gabriel and Samantha that imagination is reality. Whatever you can imagine in your mind's eye, you can make happen, literally.
Rick, as I look through this stack of pictures, I don't know if it's even legal anymore, but I would just love to be physically in the classroom with these students, with you and Grace Thorne. And I would just like to give each one of our class a great big hug. They are just wonderful, don't you think?
Well, yeah, what I'm going to do, all those letters you guys sent me, I have a scrapbook. And at some point, somewhere in after I turn to worm food or something, maybe they're going to write about what I did. And I'm going to have these scrapbooks of things that I did, where there's all these letters and these pictures. You guys look like you're really happy.
They really do. Samantha, did you have some more that you wanted to ask Dr.
Yes.
Richard Allen Miller?
Yes. Is Nirvana possible on Earth?
Yes, it is. You're close to it already yourself. It's what basically Nirvana is, a low state of bliss. It is a place where you're at peace with yourself and you have union. Basically, it's to describe a very peaceful state of mind. And being active, where you lose track of time, where where does all the time go, because you're having so much fun, that is close to Nirvana.
kind of like where we are right now, Rick. You in Oregon and me.
Timelessness. That's the flow. That's when everybody, Samantha, Gabriel, Vincent, are all of us doing what we're supposed to be doing, and it's like fun. Yes.
You're welcome, Samantha. Walter, you're up next. Walter, do you have a question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
Yes. If you believe kids can change the world, what can we do?
Well, your teacher, Grace, gave me some insight on you, and basically you say that because you live in a small town, you aren't very important. Well, that's not true at all. In fact, basically small towns versus cities. The majority of our presidents, our world's highest leaders, came from small towns. Only 4 presidents came from large cities. All the rest of them came from small towns. Abraham Lincoln, Harry Truman. These are people that it's sometimes better to be a big fish in a small town compared to being a small fish in a large pond. I grew up in Seattle. It was a large city, and really wasn't at the time I was a boy. It was not as big as Ryan. I mean, it was bigger than Ryan. I mean, we had about maybe 14 high schools in different parts of the city. So it was a big city, but not really. It was like maybe 1/4 the size of San Francisco when I was a boy. Now it's different. It's a very large city. And I was relatively unknown anywhere, including the school systems. Had nothing to do with that. Genius is found everywhere. And you kids, and the questions you're asking me, impress me a lot. I think that you're on to something, and that one of you in your class will probably be a world leader at some point, just because you're doing what you're doing right now. That is what will define you. It's not where you're from. It's what you choose to do with what you do.
Rick, I'd like to add something to that. I grew up in small towns. Very few people lived in the towns that I lived in as I was growing up. And let me tell you how small they were. If we wanted to go to the supermarket or the grocery store, it was a 20-mile ride when I was growing up. And that was on the East Coast. Now, Walter, I live in a town of, I live outside the town, and the town has 100 people in the entire town. The post office has 1 parking space. In this town, there's only 1 gas station. And there is, now, there is a small general store. So if you wanted to buy one of something, you probably could. You could buy 1 bottle of shampoo. But if you wanted to buy 5, you wouldn't be able to do it because they don't have 5. There's only a farm store, a post office, and a small general store, and a gas station in our town. That's it. There's nothing else. So living in a small town, I think is exciting. And as Dr. Richard Allen Miller said, you can be a big fish in a small pond, meaning that you can learn more and achieve more because there's fewer people to compete with. And if you look at...
that's a good one. That's the truth of it. You're lucky. Yeah. Most classes, your size are 32. In Los Angeles, there's 32 kids in a class or more.
And that's an impossibility. As a former teacher, the straw that broke the camel's back for me, I could teach up to maybe 22, 23. When I hit 25, it was an impossibility. You just cannot teach that many children in a classroom.
When I was in 4th grade, I got a report card I had to take home to my parents that said, Ricky is very disruptive. Yes, I was known as Ricky. Ricky is very disruptive. He asks too many questions.
Ricky, are you reading your report card or my report card?
Yes, be a rebel. want to know. Your imagination is so rich now that you could literally change the world just from Ryan, Oklahoma.
Well, what
letters certainly to the congressman. Stay focused on that. If I noticed that they had not yet responded to you, that's outrageous. And I would then have your superintendent and several of the school board encourage a letter to be submitted by them with your letters. That would be start paying attention to smaller children. That you're our resource, not money.
Mm-hmm. Walter, just to give you a perspective on what we're talking about, I'm sure you've heard of Glenn Beck, and you've probably heard of Imus and Geraldo. Well, right now, on the radio, we are competing with the biggest names in radio. We are on the air at the same time they are. Glenn Beck, Laura Ingraham, Herman Cain, Mike Gallagher, Peter Schiff, Imus, Geraldo, and the list goes on. And we are going head-to-head with them. And we're doing this from, Dr. Richard Allen Miller is in Grants Pass, Oregon. I'm on a farm today in Missouri, and you're in Ryan, Oklahoma, and a 6th grade class is going head-to-head with some of the biggest broadcasters in the world. So
your questions are important. Keep them coming.
Can you compete on the worldwide stage, on the national stage, from a small town? The answer is absolutely you can. And
you are.
And you are right now, right this very minute. And what I'll do is I will do a print screen of our ratings against these well-named broadcasters, and I'll send it to Grace Thorne, and she'll be able to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So, yes, you can make a difference, and I can tell you this. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I talk off the air, and this is a highlight of what we do. Being with you today is a highlight of what we do. There's nothing
it's
that
more important to me, the questions you ask, than the ones that adults are asking me on the things like Terry Cassidy and Project Camelot. I'm doing larger radio, and yet this radio that I do with you kids is more important to me than anything else I'm doing.
That's what I'm trying to say. That Dr. Richard Allen Miller really think this is one of the highlights of what we do. So we want to thank you so much, really. Let's see, who's up next? It looks like Cammie. Cammie, you're up next. Do you have a question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
Yeah, my question is, how can we tell if plants are edible or not?
This is a Navy SEAL trick. Basically, your body can tell you immediately on the surface. Your largest organ on your body is your skin. Take the inside of your arm and create a scratch where it's not with a needle. Just rug it across so it's a scratch. It doesn't quite bleed, and you, okay. Then take the plant and place it on that open wound on the inside of your arm and let it sit there for less than 1 minute, and then see what happens to the arm. If the arm swells, it means you're allergic to it and that it's probably toxic. If it doesn't swell, now I would then possibly take a very small bite to see what it did in my mouth.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller, Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Vin Finelli, USAPreparedness.com. We're teaching 6th grade today at the college level. Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Ryan, Oklahoma. Dr. Richard Allen Miller is at the front of the classroom. And coming up next, Gunner, you are up next. Do you have a question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller?
Yes. What is the point of algebra?
Oh, boy.
Well, That's a good question. I often wondered that since when I was your age. In Dr. Clement's class, I spent most of the class out in the hall. That was when I was in 6th grade and learning algebra. Good question, Gunnar. Plus, I know from Grace that you're interested in being more like a mountain man, and so you have a different way of looking at things. And the way Grace put it was that if the grid were to ever go down, she'd like to have you in her camp rather than a nerd knowing algebra. However, algebra is a way of thinking. It's not like logic when you do, is it this or that? And you go through a series of 20 questions trying to figure out what something is. Algebra is a way of learning how to think. And if you get that integrated into your mountain man, now you can use GPS and geocaching and all kinds of interesting things that you wouldn't otherwise know how to do when you skin the deer. Now, it's important to realize to have a balance in this because algebra is more than just math. What it is, it's a language. It's a way of talking about things, X and Y. You're X and I'm Y. And that's how we're going to identify Gunnar with Rick. You're X and I'm Y. And then the two of us in some way interface with each other and it equals a result, something that you and I can do together. Algebra is a way of thinking. And once you integrate that, I got an A in the class, even though I was out in the hall more than I was in because I was so bored with it. I got it right away, what it was about. It wasn't math. It's a foundation for languages. And so when I say I speak different languages like Hebrew and Greek and German, I also speak algebra. And algebra is the one that is the more fundamental language because it's the language of math. And if you learn that, now you can talk to all kinds of things, animals and trees. That's what I think is important about algebra. Teaches you a way of thinking.
Rick, is there a way that
yeah, you bet, Gunnar. Good luck with that. If you need any tutoring, just holler. I'll be your huckleberry.
Is there a way that students can learn the concepts of algebra quickly and easily, Rick?
Everybody, here's that deal. At 6th grade, I realize and recognize the differences between a gunner and someone else. And basically, we each of us learn at our own rate. And unfortunately, most teachers want everybody to learn at the same rate. Good luck with that. And so what you could do, Gunnar, is find some friends that are nerds and have them tutor you like you tutor them out in the playground. And really, it's like mentorship where you have colleagues. And some of your group are real good in algebra, and some of your group are real good at skinning an animal. And the two of you get the plate clean.
Meaning work together, cooperatively.
That's right.
Teach each other, help.
And have a nerd friend that helps you with the algebra, like you can help him on how to not get bullied on the playground. Well, that worked for me. I learned real quick, and I loved being diverse, so we had a motley crew when we played baseball. But we worked really well together as a team.
Alexa's up next. Alexa, oh shoot, we're going to a commercial. Well, I'll tell you what, Alexa, when we come back from this commercial break, you're up next with your question for Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We're teaching 6th grade class today, Ryan, Oklahoma. Grace Thorne's 6th grade class, Ryan Public School, Ryan, Oklahoma. The students have taken over the superintendent's office. And thank you for letting us have your class. Class, I have a copy of the letter that you sent me. I have a photocopy of the handwritten letter that you sent to your representatives, actually politicians in Oklahoma. And you were asking about nuclear reactors and power plants in 31 states. A very, very well-written letter signed by each and every one of you in the class, all of you. You did not get a response from any of the representatives, Inhofe, Coburn, or Cole. So I called yesterday. I called Senator James Inhofe's office in Oklahoma. They transferred me to Washington, D.C., and the person that they wanted me to speak with was the person who talks to the media, meaning radio or television or newspapers or internet publications. And here's what happened. I experienced 20 minutes of being transferred, frustration, disappointment, and no one could talk to me to answer any of my questions at any level that I was happy with. As a matter of fact, after 20 minutes, I received another call, and I said, "Can you hold? I'll be right back with you." I was only off for 3 seconds, literally, and they hung up on me. And I believe that the people whom I spoke with, that in Senator James Inhofe's office, are trained very well, highly trained to do two things. One is to say no. The other thing I think they're trained to say is, "I don't know." Those are the only two things that I could get out of them. And at another class, I'd be glad to share with you exactly what happened. But they explained to me that, "Do you really think that, you should get an immediate response?" And I said, "Well, we're not talking about an immediate response. We're talking about months." So, class, I'm very sorry to say that I believe, this is my belief, that they're not interested in your letter that was so succinctly written about the concerns that you have about nuclear power because you don't vote yet. You're not old enough to vote. Now, if you had something that they wanted, if you were a contributor, if you wanted to give them a lot of money, I'll bet you they would talk with us and I bet you they would answer your letter. But because you're not throwing money at them, they're not interested in you, nor are they interested in me? So that's why I wanted to share with you what I found out. So talking with these guys, these elected people who we hope represent us, I feel is a waste of our time. Alexa, you're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
Is cow's milk good or bad for kids?
Well, I drink it still. I have a reason, though. Only 25% of the milk you drink is absorbed by your body. Vitamin D and iron are its primary purpose. You need vitamin D, which is sunlight, in an artificial form, and you need iron. And that's what milk does. That's why it's the first thing a baby eats when it comes out of the womb. But at some point, there are toxins in or products in milk that are hard to digest. And that's when we talk about being lactose intolerant, where, again, you could, to see if you're allergic to milk, put that scratch on your arm and then put some milk on it to see whether or not it forms a reaction. A skin reaction is very minor compared to drinking it down and finding that you have now indigestion and or heartburn. There's all kinds of possibilities going on there, and some of it is not actually related to milk. Now, the reason at 70 years old I drank approximately 1 quart a week, and I basically, at age 50, fell and had my arm shatter in more than 200 places. I have an arm now, but it's artificial. It's a bionic arm. And basically, the reason it shattered was because my bones were weak, and they shattered rather than simple break. And that I associated to both iron and vitamin D. And so I've started to drink milk again, not a lot, just a little bit, and, with cereal or something of that nature. I like to do fruit with milk and sugar. That's what I like best. But that's where I take most of my milk. I don't drink it at meals. I drink water. But milk is strong for your bones, and each person is different, and some of you will eventually form an allergic reaction to it, which is called lactose intolerant. So, drink your milk, don't drink it all, prefer water. Water is always better for you because it's the water in the milk that your body really likes. In milk itself, it's vitamin D and iron. And there are foods that you can eat that are real high in both of those if you wanted to do that.
Bryant, you're up next with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Do you have a question for Rick?
Yes. Is it possible for a person to travel the world in one night?
Only if you're an astronaut and in space moving very, very quickly. In our atmosphere, the atmosphere itself, when you watch in spaceships coming back into Earth, how they heat up because of the speed that they're going and how it forms friction with our atmosphere. That's why we have certain limits in terms of what we fly in the atmosphere and so on. The XR-71 Blackbird is about the fastest aircraft that we have. It's however, it has to slow down to refuel, so it's not able to actually traverse the Earth in 24 hours. That's because it has to slow down. In itself, it could, but it needs to refuel. So the space shuttle would be the correct answer, and it can go around the world in 90 minutes. So it's not 80 days anymore, like around the world in 80 days. It's around the world in 90 minutes from space. What about the power of reading? And, for example, the beauty of literature can take an individual like you around the world in no time at all. You go on the internet, and you can punch in Thailand, and there you are. Because, again, your imagination is what's really happening here.
Dr. Miller, Lily's got a question for us. Lily, you're up next.
How is sugar as addictive as cocaine?
Well, it might be worse, as it's always associated with being happy. And with this terrible world that we're in right now, of course, being happy is always where you want to go because that feels good. While being happy is important, so is being introspective and being more thoughtful about what you're feeling and seeing. Watching yourself, watch yourself. Now, being happy is crazy because, like with sugar, it causes you to ricochet like a pinball, ricocheting from one wall to the other. You can watch someone drink a soda and then watch their behavior and how fast they start talking in stiletto and punctuation. I mean, it's just blah, 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 blah. It's just so fast you can't hardly keep up with it. And that's usually a sugar rush. And cocaine blocks different sites. So addiction is not about chemical dependencies, but both sugar and cocaine are. And you get sugar in everything that you eat. Everything has sugars in it, including spinach and vegetables. Everything has sugar in it. It's just the amount of sugar, and that's in moderation. And so the being happy, when you do it in moderation, actually has more depth to it. You are deeper in being happy when you do it less frequently and you have introspection of watch yourself. That's where the real bliss of Nirvana and some of the other places come, where you are able to stop that moment and enjoy it.
Also, sugar tastes great, and that's...
Well, yeah, that's part of its addictive behavior, just like peppermint is addictive.
Rick, we're going to have to step up the pace a little bit. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Got 2 more pages of questions.
Yeah. Gabrielle, you're up next with Dr. Richard Allen Miller.
We already did your question, didn't we, Gabriel?
Yes.
And you know what? I still would like you to ask it, and I think it was really nice of Samantha to try to put you ahead of her own question. I think it was very cool.
Is Nirvana possible?
Is Nirvana possible? Yeah, you two are buddies, I can tell right away. Yes, it is, and you're real close to it right now, like I said, and you, most likely, what you see or feel or sense is true. Now, I'm going to qualify that and also say you are also responsible for the thoughts you choose to entertain. If you want something creepy under your bed, it's going to be there. And if you don't want something creepy under your bed, then you better dismiss that thought and push it away. And it'll be persistent, push it away. Persistent, push it away. You don't want that thought, and at some point, your internal landscape of your thoughts regulate out and will eliminate that creepy thing. If you don't want to have fear, don't allow it. And while you have fear, suck it up and push it away.
Rick, when we come back, we're going to have to get through 4 questions in 4 minutes. Olivia, you're up next, then Savannah, then Leah, then Kaylee. We're teaching 6th grade right here on usaprepares.com. Students asking the questions of Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll be right back. Class, with only a few minutes left, we're going to try to get through 4 questions. Olivia, you're up next.
Can a human become immortal?
Wow.
How am I going to do that in 1 minute? Ascension, the concept of moving, being so God's favored that you did not have to die to meet God and merge with God. Nobody's done that yet, but to my knowledge, there are people trying to do it with machines called transhumanism, where they take their consciousness and intelligence and place it in a computer. I don't know that it's possible. I believe that it is because I think that death is actually waking up, and this is just a dream.
Okay. Savannah, you're up next.
Hi, Dr. Miller. This is Mackenzie. Savannah is gone. I will be asking her questions.
Okay.
Cool. Okay.
What is a FEMA camp, and will the government send people there?
FEMA camps are for emergencies when the public and infrastructure is no longer coping. Like the power goes down and people are out of water. Where do they go to get their water? The problem is that FEMA is a government organization, and actually these kinds of things should be dealt with on a more local level, one community to another. And so from that point of view, I'm going to say avoid FEMA camps if an emergency comes down, because what you want to do is be independent.
There you go. There you go. I'm absolutely with you, Rick. Leah, you're up next.
Can animals and kids sense bad people?
Absolutely. You know, the children, you became conscious when you were first conceived, and all of your mother's emotions have been put inside you before you were born. And that's the a priori knowledge that you know of, where your instincts move you toward and away certain things. You know what's real. You can tell it. Trust your own judgment, always. And babies are uncontaminated with belief systems and are much more sensitive.
Mm-hmm. And my dogs can tell good people from not so nice people. Kaylee,
They smell
you're on
different.
next. Yeah, well, my dogs react to certain people, and they're not happy, and they're telling us, I don't like this guy, or I don't like this gal. Kaylee, you're up next.
Are there shields for cell phones and computer screens to reduce radiation?
Yes, they
Good question.
do. And yes, they are toxic, and that's why your mother says not to put your face too close to the television set. Same thing. And when you put a cell phone up next to your brain, that's like asking for it, where you're spinning the dial and hoping that nothing bad happens. I use them as little as possible. As for a computer screen, twice the distance away is 4 times less radiation. So 3 times away, it's 9 times. There's your algebra thing. And be able to use that in how far you want to keep your head from the screen of a computer. Probably a good 2.5 feet, 3 feet.
Are there any
Screens are
shields you
better
can
that
use?
way because you can be further away and read them easier.
Rick, she's asking, are there any shields that we can use?
Yeah, not at this time. That radiation would take all kinds of... It dissipates with the atmosphere. Use the atmosphere. That radiation off your screen, in order for you to read it, they have screen blocks, but they limit then the vision of it. Just being further away from it is your safest protocol.
Grace Thorne, thank you so much for being with us and allowing your class to ask the questions of Dr. Richard Allen Miller. The revolution in education started right here a few weeks ago. It continued today. We look forward to having you back again and again, class, if that's what you'd like to do. Please thank your principal, Mr. Pete Maples, and please thank your superintendent, Mr. Larry Ninman, for allowing us to take over his office for the classroom today. Grace Thorne, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vincent.
Thank you, class. Thanks, Dr. Richard Allen Miller.